Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 News. Ferrari have officially debuted the SF-26. The car has hit the track in Fiorano for the first time and much drama about its debut today. Some questions as to whether it had broken down on the main straight. We'll certainly get into that. But what about the features of the car itself? Mercedes unveiled a seemingly very impressive machine, the W17, yesterday. Some of the interesting features of that car and some of the loopholes Mercedes have found, it looks like Ferrari are also using for the upcoming season in one of the most intricate cars that we have seen so far. Is it a championship challenger this time? Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. A lot of updates though happening today, and not just at Ferrari and Mercedes. We'll get into the Williams stuff in a second. Just quickly wanted to mention, because some of you guys pointed out to me and it seems kind of obvious in hindsight now, the Mercedes livery from the top down is a silver arrow. At least now I've seen it, I kind of can't unsee it. I don't know, some of you guys pointed it out, that these are like the flights of the arrow. Now, of course, you don't often see the car from the top-down view, but this is the best angle of it, and I think you can see that most clearly. Now, the remarkable thing about this Mercedes launch, we talked about it yesterday, some of the pictures that have come out as a result, was that Mercedes themselves went on to publish, and this is from Mercedes' own cameraman, right? This is the level of confidence that they appear to currently have in their machine, and this is why it is feeling a little ominous for the upcoming season. Maybe they're overconfident, maybe they're getting complacent, possibly, but we've not seen other teams do this, like put their own images out of their car on the track. Now, yes, they put their renders out, but the real car is different. And the most notable thing about this image, there's a few interesting things on this car, of course, but the most notable thing that everyone was seeing when they put this image out, we hadn't really seen it in the pictures we talked about yesterday because it wasn't so clear, but in this image it is absolutely staring you in the face, this hole in the back of the floor. Now, there's been some talk about how this is actually possible. B-Sport did a great video talking about it, but effectively the way that the rules are written allows you to have a hole in the floor as long as the regulations talk a lot about when viewed from this angle, it must be like consistent. But if it's possible to make a gap and still basically find a loophole in the rules, which is what this appears to be, I don't imagine this was intended by the regulators for them to put a hole in the back of the floor. But it is possible, and it's not just Mercedes that have done it. That's one of the key things we'll discuss with the Ferrari. But there's various technical reasons on the way the regulations are written as to why this is legal. Maybe other teams will either now start to do the same, or they will say to the FIA, hey, we want this changed. I don't know if that's going to go anywhere, because this seems perfectly reasonable based on the letter of the law. But it's a very interesting observation. The intention really here would be to channel some of that clean air from the undercuts, not to the outside where you don't really want it, but actually through this hole into the diffuser and to generate more performance. That is a very interesting feature of the Mercedes. Craig Scarborough was talking about it, this huge opening in the side of the car, which was very kind of unexpected. He says, look, it's not quite a double diffuser, but it looks like this will generate more performance for the car. And what was kind of fascinating about this is Mercedes then, it's not just one image. They didn't just put one image out. They clearly wanted us to see this. They wanted the other teams to see this and maybe to know that they're kind of serious. Look, I'm not saying other teams haven't found the idea as well, because Ferrari have, but there are some teams that probably haven't, and we've not seen it on any of the cars so far, certainly not on any of the renders that we have seen. There was also this, I mean, they put out another image, and you can see it again now from the other side, so it's like, they're blasting it at our faces right now. And look at the quality of this image. Another thing on these cars, I think it's mainly the front wings, but they look a lot smaller. They're not that much smaller, they are shorter, they are thinner, the front wheels are also notably thinner. They do look much better from like how they should race, I would say. And you can see, I think it's mainly the front wings that create that, I don't want to call it an illusion because they are smaller, but because the front wings aren't so massive and the end plates all the way out here, they're now notably inboard, it makes the cars look a lot racier, I think. And I just think it's a stunning looking car. I'm looking forward to this generation of regulations from at least how the cars look. Whether they perform well when we get to the track, of course, that is going to be a rather different question. Now, the weight limit is not 678, it's actually 768, but that was a correction made in the replies. But according to Motorsport Italia, Mercedes are very close to the weight limit. And that's, again, pretty impressive. We think other teams, maybe Alpine, maybe Audi, are getting down there. Whether that will be widespread amongst the field, we'll see. But apparently Mercedes, their car is, pretty much at the limit as well. The other thing that's interesting to note about this front wing, and you can actually see it on the render and on the real car, the nose cone, or the nose, is mounted to the second element of the front wing, not the bottom one, which is confusing. Not confusing, but it's surprising in the sense that there's active error on the front wings, so you'd want to flatten this out as much as possible to reduce the downforce. So it would be logical to put it on the first element and then restrict the latter two for more straight line performance. That's not what Mercedes have done, which is interesting, and I don't know if other teams have done that. There's also some elements of the front wing end plates. There's this little basically the real car has some more intricate elements than we saw on the renders. And then they're putting out images of Kimi Antonelli kissing the car, and it's like, oh my God. It's pretty clear that they're very confident. This is George Russell. Look at the grin on his face, right? He looks absolutely buzzing to to get a chance in this machine, and he looks excited about the prospect. The other thing to note is that Mercedes hit the track in Silverstone yesterday and just banged out 200 kilometers. No sweat, no problem, right? They did their running, Antonelli, Russell were both in the car. And that is pretty impressive, right? Audi, they did their shakedown. They were struggling to put all the laps together. Cadillac, they struggled. Okay, expected maybe from those teams. But Mercedes, brand new package, brand new engine. They've just hit the track in Silverstone, banged out the 200 kilometres. That's 2/3 of a race distance around Silverstone. That's a ton of laps. And got all the data they needed. The car works. It's a good start. It's for sure a good start for Mercedes. We don't, of course, know where they will be competitively. It's far too early to say, but there's a lot of reason for Mercedes to have a lot of confidence, I think, in their current performance. Now, Aston Martin apparently are furious about their compression tricks, and Mercedes are doing this compression ratio solution that we understand. According to rumours yesterday, they had the meeting about it, and it's not been banned. It is what it is. This, of course, was inevitable. Like, what are you going to do? Stop all the Mercedes power teams competing for the next few months until they find a solution? It's just not going to happen, unfortunately, for the other teams. So, look, there may be protests. There has been some talk that Aston Martin, Audi, among the other teams, maybe Ferrari as well, if they're not doing it, they might set up some sort of protest in Australia. I don't know, but apparently Aston aren't very happy because it's a key performance differentiator, and it might hold Aston Martin back and maybe Ferrari back from competing for the title this season. Again, we know that the fuel is another debate, which is something that we talk about relatively frequently. That could make up for some of this deficit, but and that requires Petronas not doing a very good job. Now, speaking of Mercedes, this is one of the other major developments of the day. We talked about it yesterday, and as I said, there were rumours that Williams were struggling to get everything together for the first tests. And people were like, oh, well, those rumours, they're not particularly founded. It would be difficult to imagine Williams. Let's not forget James Vowles. He's been yapping for the last couple of years. We don't care about 23. We don't care about 24. We don't care about 25. It's all about 2026, trying to get back to the top. So, yeah, okay, talk a good game, sure. But now we're here in 2026. So what have you got for us, Williams? And, it obviously would have been unexpected. As I said yesterday, I knew that there was some truth behind these rumours that Williams was struggling. But it was a little bit difficult for the community to believe, because it's like, well, with 2026 now, these teams are pretty advanced, they've got lots of money. It would be a surprise if teams messed up this badly in terms of having their preparation for the season be so restricted. Especially a team that's committed so much to this year, as we understand. So Williams yesterday tweeted this out. A new era starts now, the new car is alive, the engine is fired up, and it's like, okay, they're back. So obviously there were some rumours about the everything, despite today's news, the video was great and all this. Actually, maybe that's a tweet from yesterday. So then today, Williams, they follow up with this. Atlassian Williams F1 team has taken the decision not to participate in next week's shakedown test in Barcelona following delays in the programme as we continue to push for maximum car performance. It's very, very difficult to spin this in any sort of positive way. The team will conduct a series of tests, including a VTT, I don't know, like virtual test or something, in the simulator, I guess, with the car to prepare for the first official test in Bahrain, and then the start of the season. But this is clearly a disaster, right? And Racing News 365 say that the car keeps failing the crash tests, the chassis isn't working. And I read something about... There was a guy from Alpine who was part of Alpine's program when they were failing those crash tests and the car was getting overweight and all these other things. And he was part of that program at Alpine when they were struggling with the chassis. And Williams hired him, and like the same things happened again. It seems anyway. I'm sure there's more to the story than that. But yeah, this is bad news because I know a lot of you guys are Williams fans. Like you want Williams to succeed. Williams have a phenomenal history in the sport. There was a lot of excitement that maybe 2026 is the year, Mercedes powered, for them to really take a big step forward. But right now it looks like the opposite is happening, and it will be fascinating in due course to figure out why. It's a big loss. I mean, you lose 3 whole days of running in Barcelona, putting everything together, figuring out all the kinks, and it's also, there's no pressure on it publicly because there's no broadcast, right? They've agreed, the teams and the FIA and Formula 1, whatever, not to broadcast the test in Barcelona. So it's a perfect opportunity to get some early running done, and the fact that they're not even going to be able to be there, I mean, they say like they've decided not to take part, but like, do they have a car that can? Right? I think that's the point. Is like, have they decided not to go, or literally can they not? So like, I would obviously probably spend more time talking about that, but there's a lot happening today. We may get back to that in the coming days. Alpine have also unveiled their car, and, well, nobody really cares, so we'll just move on. We'll talk about the Ferrari, though. But, like, this is what the car looks like. Okay, it's an Alpine. They've gone for the pink and the blue again. It's funny with Alpine because they hit the track in Silverstone the other day, and, like, just with this livery on. And I don't understand why Alpine... Every year they leak their own livery. I don't really know why, but they did it again because they hit the track and people were taking pictures of it. I will say this livery is just basically on the show car. There's nothing intricate going on here at the side. The real car has far more interesting components, so there really isn't too much to say about this. There is a lot to say, however, about the Ferrari. So here we go. They've done it again. Scuderia Ferrari. They're bringing the hype for the new season. Obviously, all the Tifosi are out there at Fiorano today waiting for this car to get unveiled. Is it going to be a contender this season? It's worth noting this is a Spec A, right? They're bringing Spec A, Spec B, Spec B Plus or whatever as the season goes on. The key thing about this reveal, of course, is the livery. Is it better than last year's? What do we think? The rear wing is notably better. I don't like the IBM on the back still, that's ugly. But the front of the rear wing with the HP being on the black rather than on the white, that is better, right? For sure. The white is on the rest of the car. The HP logo is still very blue. I know that some people are hoping that it wouldn't be, but I think, let's be honest, that was kind of inevitable. There's a lot more white. It's kind of one of those more like old school Ferrari liveries with, especially from the top down, it looks like a, like a Niki Lauda Ferrari or something. So yes, we shall see. I don't mind the livery. I think it's fine. It's kind of what I expected, to be honest. I think the glossy red is quite nice. I wish it was just a bit more red. I don't know. Like, in my opinion, Ferrari should just be red. But this is the top-down view of the car anyway. And yeah, it looks fine. It looks quite nice. It's probably not quite as spectacular as I was hoping it might look. But it's a Ferrari. It's red. It is what it is. These cars look good in the regulations regardless. Now, this is, of course, the render view. We can see a fair bit. We also see a connector again. Some teams haven't done this. This element of the car, I know that people are calling this the barge board. It's not technically a barge board. You know, we might start calling it a barge board or keep calling it one just because that might be what the community refer to it as. Technically, I think it's the floorboard is what they're technically calling it. But anyway, this component, you can have a connector, like a strut here that connects it. And that's an option. Some teams have, some teams haven't gone down this route. Ferrari have a pretty interesting approach here, actually, that I'll show you guys in a second. But this is the livery. Again, this is a very different car to what actually hit the track today, because when we look at the rear, where things get very interesting with this double diffuser type trick, that is not the case on the renders. Now, on the real car, you will see that actually, yes, they do have, I mean, you can see it in this picture as well, they do have a double connector. You couldn't see that from the top angle, and it is on the renders as well. So there's this connecting part to this side element. What's fascinating about this, of course, is that the Mercedes, this is pretty much what most teams have done, what we see on the Ferrari here. But they've got this one leading element, and then they've got the 3 other kind of slanted elements further back. This is what most teams have done because it seemed like the most sensible way to use that area of the regulation box. Mercedes haven't bothered with this front element at all. They just have 3 parallel elements further back. Very interesting. But yeah, we can see that they've got like a connecting rod and this like strut connected to this part. So maybe there's some, of course, there's always going to be some aerodynamic elements there. But this, I think, is the money shot, really. This is the Ferrari driving out on the track in Fiorano today, Hamilton at the wheel. They can only do 15 kilometres, at this like filming day running. If they do like a proper filming day, then they can do 200k as we saw Mercedes do. But if they do, like, I think they call it a demo day, that's what they tend to do for these. They can only do 15k, so there's only a few laps they can do, really. They do a slow lap, then a push lap, and then they do a couple more. That's pretty much it. Back to the garage. But the car looks pretty great. From this angle, I think it's a great looking car. And there's a lot of similarities to the Mercedes. I think that's what's most fascinating about this to me. Again, we can see that that nose is mounted to the front of the front wing rather than the second element, as is the Mercedes. But many of the elements towards the end are kind of similar. And of course, very notably here, is what is going on at the back of the floor. There are some other things worth noting. This airbox kind of intake is actually quite different to what other teams have done. I know that Ferrari do tend to like this more triangular shape, but they've got this like massive hole in it this year, which is very intriguing. No other team has done anything like that so far. But if you compare the two cars, there are a lot of similarities. Now, this is also definitely worthy of mention. The first thing that we have seen so far on this season, Hamilton comes out of the garage, and you can see right about here, he's activating the actuator for the active aero. Now, we've not seen this so far. Kind of when, you remember when Hamilton came out the pit in Austria for that test of the W11 and he was coming down the straight and flapping the DRS open and shut. Maybe he thought he was going to do a similar thing here and make a bit of a statement. But you can see what it looks like. So he activates effectively it's DRS, I mean, as we know. But the front wing is, to me, very interesting. The rear wing, we've seen it all before, kind of, right? But the front wing, you can see what it looks like there when it's activated. The front wing, and it's interesting that they seem to move not necessarily together. I don't know if that was, because you would think you press the button to change them and they both flip at the same time. But you can see the rear wing goes before the front wing, and the rear wing comes back before the front wing, and then the rear wing's open here. So a little confusing between, they're calling this cornering mode and straight line mode. That's the technical definition. But look at the front wing just disappear, right? Like it just vanishes. And I think that's really interesting, especially compared to what Mercedes are doing with, because for Mercedes it won't vanish, I don't think, but we've not seen them use it yet. So it's tough to say. We might get some shots in Barcelona. But I mean, look how that front wing is just gone and then it's back, right? So we're going to see some high top speeds, I'm pretty sure. But interesting that they were operating separately there. Anyway, that's the first look we've really had of the active aero. Then there was some drama, because Hamilton came to a stop. Leclerc's Letters did another tweet, actually, which was this, when you can see Hamilton stops on the track, and then they come out and get the car and push it back into the pit. Now, this was all planned. I know that there was lots of talk about, oh my god, the car broke down. It's like, well, you know, it'd be very convenient for it to break down right there, just in front of the garage, where it's actually a little bit tricky to get to that garage any other way. And Leclerc did the same thing, right? So Hamilton did a few laps, he stopped the car there, they wheeled it into the garage. Leclerc did the same thing. There was no massive drama there. I know that there was some talk on socials that, oh, well, the car's broken, it's broken down, it's already over for Ferrari. But, like, no, it's not. That's not what happened. They parked the car up there. They wheeled it back into the garage. That was part of the plan. They could only do a certain amount of laps. And they didn't, you know, they wanted to finish like as much as they could through the lap to make the most of the 15-kilometer limit as part of the demonstration event. So Hamilton did that, Leclerc did that. There were no issues with the car. Things seemed to run pretty smoothly. But look, we'll just spend a couple more minutes here really talking about some of the intricate features. Loic Serra, he used to be a Mercedes man. He's now working at Ferrari. Has he designed some of the suspension? Possibly. Some of these suspension elements, I mean, I'm not too familiar with what these are really meant to do, but there's actually quite a lot of talk about them. The front brake duct scoops behind this deflector. And again, it's one of these elements that looks reasonably intricate compared to, at least if you compare this to what you'll see on the renders. And, well, Ferrari, it looks like, have a pretty similar approach. Both Ferrari and Mercedes have this element, however you might define this. All I can really tell you is Ferrari and Mercedes are doing the same thing here. The other teams are taking a different approach. So either the other teams are not yet showing us their full specs, or Mercedes and Ferrari are slightly ahead of the curve. And just if you compare the two cars, right, like, of course, the Mercedes has been on quite a diet. It's very efficiently packaged at the back, seemingly more so than the Ferrari, I think you would argue. But the side pod is not dissimilarly shaped, to be honest. You can see that element of the floorboard there. The Mercedes doesn't have the front element, which is kind of interesting. You can also see this little flick off on the front wing of the Mercedes that the Ferrari doesn't have. So there's obviously some differences, but fundamentally, the suspension setup, the hole in the back of the car as well, it's not as noticeable on the Ferrari than on the Mercedes, but it's definitely still there. Like, you can see this gap, you can see the same gap at the bottom on the Ferrari. This has been one of the key talking points, really, that, yeah, they've gone for a similar idea. And even if you look at the shape of the side pods, okay, it's not the same, but there's a lot of similarities here. So, look, if there's confidence that Mercedes are going to get it right with their concepts, then there's a feeling that Ferrari are at least along the right lines here, right? There's talk about, Craig Scarrow put this together, where the airflow will be, trying to channel through the undercut through that little gap, which is still there. It's not as noticeable, but it is still there. So, yeah, intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Just one final thing I'll close out with. I don't really know what to make of this, but because the Mercedes debuted in the wet, Roberto put together a little analysis of the spray of these new cars. Now, again, he does say it's difficult to account for those wet conditions, but he says that he's done his best to account for it, the differences in the wet conditions, and has found the following solution. Now, again, are the cars going the same speed? I'm not sure that I buy this totally, but take it as you will. If you look at the spray from the shakedown of the W17 compared to at Silverstone, the McLaren of last year, you can see the spray is far more dense. So there is some discussion that with the new design of these cars, and you can see especially on the floor, right, like that part of the floor, it does not kick up anywhere near as much spray, it appears, than the previous generation. So there may be something in that in terms of how easily we can race in the rain. But that's pretty much all we can say for now. Intrigued to your thoughts in the comments, hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.